All right. Welcome, everyone. Matt says, woohoo, me and my cat are here and feeling feelings. Matt is Wood in Spirit. He is our moderator. Matt, thank you. Thank you for being here. Well, welcome in, everyone. I'm happy to be with you all today. My name is Claire. I come on here every single week, every Wednesday from 8 to 9 Eastern, and we talk about all things intuitive emotional healing, which is my framework that I'm bringing you. And I'm excited tonight. I had kind of a cool thing happen, like a cool download come in today that was pretty darn humbling. I had some beautiful divine timing happen today. So I'm excited to share all of that with you. But first, welcome. If you haven't met me before, again, my name is Claire. I live up in Maine. And I've developed this framework that's called intuitive emotional healing. And it helps you to basically get reconnected with yourself, learn to feel your feelings again so you can actually receive your guidance and show up to your relationships with more love in your heart and more awareness and more willingness to soften and more gentleness. Can everybody hear me okay? Matt, you just said the audio seems to have cleared up now. Was I having an audio issue? Are we doing okay? Just let me know. Okay, great. Thank you, user 62. All right. So user 62 has already thrown in something for us to talk about, which I love. So if you would like me to talk about anything in particular tonight, please throw it into the chat. Matt will kind of keep an eye on things for me. And we talk about things that you want to talk about. I want this to be as relevant to you as possible. So if you have anything around self-esteem, about your self-worth, about the way you feel about yourself, about your communication, your human relationships, how to feel feelings, anything that's coming up that feels sticky or that you're kind of getting stuck on, that you find that your brain's spending a lot of time on, feel free to throw it into the chat. And I'm happy to talk directly to you to answer your question. So we'll get to my download realization later on. First, we'll start with user 62's question. How to overcome the fear of being judged. Okay, so this one, I feel like everybody can relate to this one. All of us kind of craft the way that we show up with other people so that we will escape judgment. Like no one sets themselves up to intentionally receive judgment because it doesn't feel good. Judgment, really, if you break it down, it's just a moment where we experience separation from other people, where we don't feel connected and we don't feel loved, and maybe we don't feel emotionally safe. And so it doesn't feel good. Feeling judged doesn't feel good. So I don't know that we ever get to a place where we are impervious to judgment. I think that's something we hope for, but I think the truth is judgment from your close people, from the really important people in your life. I don't know that the sting of that ever goes away. But how do we show up for ourselves when we feel judged? How do we notice when we're feeling judged? How do we work on our self-belief so that less of people's judgments affect us at a deep level? We can definitely talk about that. So how do we show up for ourselves when we're feeling judged? I think that's the first thing. The very first thing I would say is we have to remember that the pain that we're feeling is not actually about the other person. So if someone's judging us, what we're feeling is, I'm not good enough in some way. Like you've decided on some level that the way that I am, or the way that I do things, or some aspect of me is not acceptable for you. And if I believe that judgment, it's going to sting. Like if there's a part of me that doesn't feel like it's enough, that judgment is going to sting. So the very first thing I need to remember is that the judgment from the other person hurts because it is illuminating a belief that I have about myself that is painful. I'm going to say that again. When someone else judges you, you're not feeling upset necessarily about the other person. What you're feeling upset about is your own feelings about yourself, your own belief about yourself because of what they said. We are always, always, always reacting to our own belief system, not to the other person. So the reason we know this is because if that person hadn't triggered that belief in you, something else would have. Our beliefs get triggered by situations over and over and over again in our life until we look at them and we learn from them. So when you're being judged, it stings because you're believing that you're not lovable in some way, that you're not worthy of connection in some way. You're feeling emotionally unsafe in some way. So we just have to remember it's not about them. If they hadn't triggered it, someone else would be triggering this limiting belief that we have about ourselves. So we want to stop looking at the other person. We want to bring it back to ourselves. The question that I always pose to you is, you don't want to say, why am I feeling this? You don't want to say, this isn't fair. What's wrong with the other person? These are not the questions you want to be asking. The question you want to be asking is, what am I feeling that I just experienced that judgment? What am I feeling that I just had this belief about myself? What am I feeling that I just had this thought? And if you can spend your time there and learn to be with the tender feeling that is underneath that and hold really, really loving, compassionate space for yourself with that tender feeling, you move it through. And then the next time you receive that kind of a judgment from somebody else, you're not going to experience it in the same way. It's not going to stick as much in you because you've already felt through and sort of started to untangle the belief that you have about yourself. So the way we show up for ourselves when we're feeling judged is we just remember that, like, our worthiness is not based on other people's thoughts and opinions about us. We have to connect to our own inherent worthiness. So I think the truth of this, I was just talking about this today in a session with a client. You know, we have to remember that we're people. You're a person. You're not doing things perfectly all the time. And you have your own set of, like, very specific things that you like to do and your own set of lived experiences that have brought you to where you are, what you think is fun, things that you don't like to do, things that you believe about the world. You have your own way of expressing your own humanity, like, out in the world. And the way that you do things and the way that you express yourself and the things that make you happy are not going to match with every other human on the planet because they're not supposed to. You're here to do it in your own way. And so when we experience judgment from others, what we're really doing is we're going, oh, I don't fit your rubric. Like, you're putting me up against this rubric and I'm not matching your rubric. So I'm basically deciding in this moment that because I don't match your rubric, that I'm not acceptable. That's really what we're doing when we believe other people's judgments, right? And then we're going, oh, well, this should be my rubric too. So then we start measuring ourselves according to what we think we should be like. So the truth of this is that this is a really deep question. Like, how do we overcome what was the wording? I don't want to mess it up. How to overcome the fear of being judged. Like, the truth is, if we want to overcome the fear of being judged, we have to create such a loving relationship with ourselves that we feel safe to experience whatever comes our way emotionally. That we know if we're feeling really sad, that we have a safe place to land in ourselves, that we're not going to beat ourselves up. That if we fail at something, if something doesn't go the way that we want it to, that we're going to be kind to ourselves, hold ourselves accountable, certainly look for where we want to grow. We're not going to be mean to ourselves. So it's really about cultivating a relationship with yourself and a mental inner world that is kind, that sees you fully for who you are and doesn't just point out the shitty things that need to change. So it's really about you beginning to see yourself with more of your humanity included in the picture. And as you do that, as you love yourself at a deeper level by getting curious, what am I feeling underneath the judgment I just received? You know, what do I believe about myself that I just got fired? What do I believe about myself that my relationship isn't what it used to be? You know, like, how am I feeling that I just had a really tough conversation with my mom? How am I feeling that I just had this memory come up from my childhood? How am I feeling? How am I feeling? This is the question you want to ask yourself. If you can continue to bring your mind from the why is this happening and the circumstances that happened out there, and return yourself to what am I feeling that I just experienced that thing, and you get really good at being with the tender part underneath, all this changes. You have less fear of being judged. You're just going to be more solid in your shoes because you're connected to your worthiness. So that's my whole hope, and what I bring to all of you is that every week, as we share stories, as we dive deeper into like how we feel competently, and you get to hear from me, someone who's walking this walk. Not that I have it all figured out, because I don't. I'm a human person in a body still. And if you're a human person in a body, then you still have stuff to learn. That's my spiritual perspective. Um, so I'm not healed by any stretch of the imagination, but I do walk this walk. And what I'm bringing you is my lived experience, and what has worked for me to completely overcome my anxiety, to melt my depression. It's gone. I'm not obsessed with boys anymore. I've been in a loving relationship with myself for really since the winter of 2020 is when I really sank into this in a deep way. And I started offering this work in 2021. And so, really, since then, I have taken my own emotional, mental well being back into my own hands and really learned to be my best friend. So, what I'm bringing you here is a framework to help you do the same thing. If I, in 3 years, can go from eating my feelings, being completely obsessed with boys, having terrible body anxiety, having bouts of depression and like real deep aloneness, and I can go from that to where I am now, where I'm bringing you this framework and I have more joy in my life and I am more firmly seated in my shoes, and I can speak clearly about all of this to you all. If I can do that in 3.5 years, you can do this. This does not take a long time. This is, our relationship with ourselves is lifelong because you're with you for your entire life. But the amount of time that it takes to turn your brain around, to have it go from being something that tears you down and harms you and keeps you small, the amount of time that it takes to go from that to being one of your cheerleaders, like one of your biggest cheerleaders, to like one of the most loving relationships that you have, it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot of time. It just takes awareness and it takes practice, really noticing your brain and the story that you're telling yourself. And it takes a willingness to be able to dive into your emotions. And so that's why I have this framework for you, because I didn't have anyone with me when I was doing this. This is how I'm going to pause before we go to more questions, because I want to tell you what happened to me today. This is so cool. And this lines up with what we're talking about, this like turning things around for yourself. So today I had an interaction with my partner, Jess, that it was about something exciting that's happening for her. She's like starting to meet people who are really celebrating what she does, and she deserves that because she's an incredible osteopath and an incredible energy healer, and people are seeing her in her gift, and it's amazing. I'm really happy for her. And at the same time, one of the people who is celebrating her, I really want to connect with, and I'm not fully connecting with. And it's okay. That's what happens in life. Like we are drawn to certain people and not to other people. And I get it. I understand it. But at a deep core level, I had some loneliness coming up. I had some feelings of like, yeah, just kind of not being fully seen in what I'm bringing the world. It's not this like no one's here doing the work with me, but it was like where are my colleagues that I can connect with in a real way, like in person, not just like who are the teachers that I've learned from forever, but like who are the people that like get this, I talk about Dolores Cannon on here, who passed away and is my galactic grandmother, the past life regression hypnotherapist. I talk about Tony Robbins. I talk about Brene Brown. We talk about Louise Hay. All of these people are my heroes for sure. But I just had this feeling watching Jess forming these really beautiful relationships with colleagues who are ready for her and lifting her up. I see that Jess just signed on, so maybe she's going to chime in here. I don't know if she will. But anyway, so I had some like just sadness coming up around that. And I was feeling like I needed to take a walk and I wanted something new to listen to. And so I was going through Jess's audiobooks on her Audible because we share accounts. We have different audiobook services. I have audiobooks.com. She has Audible. So we flip flop and share books. And one of the books that was in her library was a book that I've had a hard copy of since 2010. That's 14 years ago. I've never opened it, ever. I've always meant to, but I never opened it. You know what book it is? It's A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And so here I am like, okay, well, let's just see if this resonates. Like I read The Power of Now back in 2010. Yeah. So 14 years ago. Um, and I got probably 10% of it back then. I mean, he planted some seeds. I was just telling Jess, I think that he is the reason that I was able to uncouple from my brain and start to actually watch it and become the observer. And I know that now I've gone past that. I'm the compassionate witness, not just the observer of my mind. But I think Eckhart really planted that for me. So I read his book in 2010, and I have just very, very, very peripherally kind of kept track of what he's doing, but like not really. Haven't really paid much attention to him since. But I know that what I'm doing, it mirrors kind of what he does, but I have a different way of doing it. Anyway, so I download the book and I put it on. And within the first 5 minutes of the book, I was hearing all of the concepts that I bring to you said in different words. And I felt just this like, I'm feeling it now, this like flood of resonance. Like, oh my gosh, like this person gets it. Like, here, I've had this book on my shelf for 14 years. And right now, in this moment where I'm meeting colleagues, not that Eckhart is my colleague, I don't know him, I've never met him, but here is another teacher who is teaching the same sort of thing that I'm bringing, but in a very, very different way. I had no idea that in the last 14 years, I'm getting a little bit choked up about this, guys. um, it's very humbling to pick up a book by one of your heroes and hear your own voice and what he's saying. And I was telling Jess, you know, here I am bringing this framework to all of you to help you heal your hearts. And I've been trying to make this available to as many people as possible. And so I feel like I've been trying, even though I do talk about near death experiences and we talk about the spiritual side of things, I've never thought of my work as helping people to spiritually awaken. And this is so damn humbling, you guys. It's hard for me to talk about without crying. I'm seeing my work in a very different way now. I feel this, like the calling that I have is to pick up where Eckhart kind of left off. He brought us all these beautiful concepts about how to separate from our ego and create like peace within our bodies, but he didn't do so in a very tangible way. Like if any of you have ever heard Eckhart Tolle, like he sounds like a little like hobbit and he looks like a hobbit. He's very, very intellectual. And he speaks about all of this in this very lofty, kind of unrelatable way. But in a beautiful way. I love the way he speaks, but he doesn't bring you the how. He just kind of tells you what's happening in you with you relating to your ego and believing it, and the insanity of the human race that we all believe our ego, the little voice in our head. But he doesn't tell you how. And so the realization that I had today as I'm walking and I'm listening to this man is I'm realizing like, oh my gosh, here he is. He brought the divine masculine version of spiritual awakening to the planet, or at least his version, right? Because we have, you know, numerous teachers that all bring this in different ways. So here he is, one of my heroes, and he brought this divine masculine way of separating from your ego and finding peace and really going through a spiritual awakening where you heal emotionally. And I just never thought about what I'm doing as, I don't know why it makes me cry so hard. But I never thought about what I was doing as like taking the torch from Eckhart and like really coming to all of you. Ah, and here I am, this like very divine feminine human, very divine feminine, and my framework is very divine feminine. And I get to come to all of you and I get to help us take every beautiful thing that he brought and I get to help us bring it into our hearts. And the coolest part about this is that we met in 2010, meaning I found him in 2010. And then it took 14 years. And his book that I'm reading now that resonates with me and talks about everything that I'm bringing you, it existed that entire time. He came to this way, way, way before me. But over 14 years, I took my own path and I did my own work and I came to things in my own way and I ended up at the same place with him again. And it's so humbling because it's like, holy shit. I'm here helping people to like heal their hearts. And I'm helping people to go through spiritual awakening. That feels like a really big responsibility. And it feels like way bigger shoes than I could even imagine fitting into. And that's really, really humbling. Um, but very cool and feels very expansive and resonant. And it reminds me that I am not here to bring this watered down, secular, sterile, emotional healing um, framework to anybody. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to remind you of who you are and who you are as a spiritual being. And so this cannot be separate from you being a spiritual being. And what the resonance that I felt today and the tears that I've been in and out of the entire time I've been on with you all are my very clear um, confirmation that I'm fully stepping into who I am with this. So, anyway, I have never felt so strongly about something. Like I've never like had such a deep knowing that feels so humbling and it's such a sweet thing and makes me very excited and also changes the way that I'm doing the course that I'm writing. So, it's a big moment, really really big thing to step into today and to realize about what I'm doing and um I look forward someday. I was saying this to Jess, like, I look forward someday to meeting Eckhart and telling him about the walk that I took today, where I just like cried my eyes out because I realized that he and I were like brother and sister teachers, bringing very similar things, but in very, very different ways to the planet. And just what an honor it is to see that what he's doing is bringing people to a spiritual awakening and that I ended up in the same basically at the same realizations that he did without even needing to read A New Earth. So if you haven't read that book and you're curious about what I'm talking about, grab Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. It's going to talk to you about what we're going through right now, this process on the planet where human beings have to evolve out of their egos or we're going to destroy ourselves. I mean, he wrote this book. Well, if I found it 14 years ago, it's got to be older than that. And when you look at the world right now and what's happening out in our culture, in Western culture, you can see exactly what he's talking about with people being so caught up in the negative stories in their heads that we're all separate. We're going to destroy ourselves if we stay on that path. Um, it's almost like he's predicting the future, but he's not. He could just see it so much clearly, so much more clearly than we could. So I highly, highly recommend that book. I'm only 45 minutes into it. That's another thing about him. If you've never read him before or listened to him before, it's really, really helpful to listen to him in small chunks and then take a break and really digest what you just learned because it's such a powerful, jam packed. Everything that he does is powerful and jam packed, and you could just really reflect on what you learn and what you hear from him for like many days in just like one paragraph. So with that, I'll catch up with the chat. Thank you all for just holding space for me and letting me talk about my realization today. Gosh, what a whole thing. All right, let's see. Wow, so much is on here. Okay. I'm I'm just going to read for a second, everyone, and just see if there's anything I need to catch up with. Matt, I see that you have something. Um, Matt, thank you for letting everyone know that I don't keep up with the comments. I appreciate that. Sorry, everyone. It takes me a second sometimes to catch up with where we are. User 62, if you had something else that you wanted to say about judgment, I would love to hear it. And I don't see any comments from you from your first question. Okay. I get feedback that I'm tough to love and take so much time to heal from things. I feel judged. User 62, thank you for saying that. You're going to do things differently. You're doing things on your own time in your own way. And I understand that. I got the you're too much, you're too dramatic, you're too sensitive all growing up. And so, again, the reason that that hurts is because there's a part of you that's believing that. So there's nothing wrong with any of it. It's okay that you're believing that. When we get told a message over and over again, we believe it. So, what you get to do now at this point is one, give yourself some credit for admitting it out loud, especially to someone that you don't know, so that you can receive a different way of thinking about it. That takes courage. And I'm grateful that you did that. And now that you're at this moment, you get to go, what am I feeling underneath the judgment? Do I feel small? Am I feeling misunderstood? Do I feel grief? What is it that I feel? You want to look for a tender feeling. And this is where you just want to see if you can be really soft with you. Now, remember, we're building a relationship with ourselves where we're kind. If you have someone who's with you all the time, who's like kind of nice sometimes and kind of mean sometimes and judges you sometimes, but is really supportive in other moments, like kind of flip flops back and forth. When you feel excruciating vulnerability, like you really need to fall apart, do you want to fall apart with that person? Like, my guess is probably not. Like, it's probably pretty vulnerable and awful to like show any emotion to someone who is being unkind to you. And so the thing that we don't realize is like that's how our brains are. Our brains kind of flip flop back and forth or are just negative all the time. And so when we do feel something deeply, it's really hard to feel our feelings without judging ourselves and being unkind to ourselves. And so you want to remember you have a relationship with you all the time. So you want to be watching, what am I telling myself in my brain? What is the message I'm giving to me about me? Am I deciding I'm a problem sometimes? Am I deciding that there's shit that I do that makes me a bad person? Am I believing that I'm not talented at anything I do? Like, am I tearing myself down? Am I basing my own self image on everything else everybody else is saying? It's like you want to have some awareness of what you're saying to you about you. And when you do that throughout the day and you start to notice that, and you start to craft an inner voice that is kinder to you, that is more accepting of your humanity, that is more understanding of your human experience, what you will find is that when these tender emotions come up because you are feeling judged, you'll be able to look underneath there and go, oh, I'm feeling really tender, and it's okay for me to feel tender. And so I just need to cry. You're going to be able to hold space for yourself better. So it's really about making room for the fact that you are a different person. You're going to do things differently. The way that you are doesn't need to look like the way anybody else is. So there are going to be people who don't understand your process and who want your process to look more like theirs. And the truth is, like, all we can do is feel our feelings about that and hold space for ourselves and be kind to ourselves and then decide, what are my boundaries with this person? You know, that's kind of what life is. It's us learning to feel our feelings competently and then adjusting our boundaries with other people based on what they're capable of and where they're at in their awareness and, you know, how willing they are to lean in and admit their stuff too, because hopefully we're leaning in and admitting our stuff. So does that help, user 62? I don't know if you're still on here. Jess, thank you for putting up the books. Jess is my partner. Okay. I just want to normalize everyone that you're welcome, that this is a process and it takes time. You're a person, you have a relationship with you. Relationships are built one moment at a time, one situation at a time, one interaction at a time. And so we want to think that if we just have a new habit or we have a way of dealing with our emotions, that things are going to change and everything's going to be better overnight. But the truth is, you just have a relationship with yourself and you already have it right now. You've had it your whole life. It's just probably been absent or it's been like abusive in your head a little bit. We say things to ourselves that we would never accept from other people, that we would never say to other people. And we don't recognize that as abuse because it's like normalized. But the truth is, if you wouldn't say it to another person and it wouldn't feel good for someone else to say it to you, it's abuse. So, user 62 says, they're my parents. I live with them. I don't know what to do. Your only thing, my dear, is to become your own best friend. When you become your own best friend, even if it's your parents, I can tell you that like I said, I've been told I'm dramatic and I'm too sensitive or too much by numerous people through my whole life. And some of those people who have told me those things are still in my life. And I think sometimes they might still feel that way. But the truth is, for me, when I am authentic with myself about how I'm feeling, when I hold space for myself, when I treat myself kindly, I care less about what other people think of me, even close people. So you will just decide with these closer relationships in your life when you learn to really be with your tender feelings without judgment, without making yourself wrong, without making anybody else wrong, but just going, oh, it's painful. I love these two. I want to have a closer relationship. Can I just feel the grief that this is where we are and that I feel misunderstood by them sometimes? If you can just make room for that and you can feel that through, what you're going to find is that you have more space for them. You're going to find that you're just going to know that you're not going to talk about certain things with them and you'll be able to meet them where they are. Now, obviously, there are certain people in our lives who just don't understand, who aren't going to. And we might not be able to have a relationship with certain people, but you don't know that until you have shown up for yourself and been able to feel things through. So I just encourage people never to cut things off with close people in your life until you've really taken the time to feel the grief that you want to have a close relationship and it's not there. And then adjust your boundaries before you make any big decisions. User 62 says, anything I try to heal from, they say you take so much time to get over it. Matt says there's no standard for these things. That says more about them than you, my friend. And also, Claire's totally right too. Thanks, Matt. So there is no standard for this. And the truth is, we need to have boundaries with every single person, which means that you're going to talk about certain things and you're not going to talk about other things. And you're going to want to do certain activities with people who you feel comfortable with and not with other people. And so every single relationship in our life with people in our family and with people that are not in our family, like our friends and our, if you have a loving partner, each one of those relationships looks different. And so the thing that I always encourage people to do, and maybe this will be helpful, user 62, I encourage people to take the label away. So take away the label of dad, take away the label of mom, or I don't know, maybe you have two moms or two dads, but whoever your parents are, take away the label. And then just look at them individually. Who is this person? What are their strengths? What are the things that they are naturally beautifully good at? Where do they thrive? What are their favorite things? Where are the areas that they're struggling to step in to like strength? Where are their opportunities for growth? Where are they not aware of themselves? Where are they not aware of their impact on other people? Like, where do they kind of have a hard time? And then who am I? Like, what are the things that I'm naturally just really good at? What are the things that I really like shine at? Where are my strengths? And then, like, where are the places that I really struggle? Where am I being asked to grow? What are my opportunities to expand? So you want to do that for each of those people and you. Like, do a 360-degree view. And then the question is, looking at these two people without the roles of son or daughter, without the role of dad or mom, just these two people with where they're at in their lives, their strengths, their weaknesses, their awareness, their emotional connection. What's possible? Is it possible for them to have a close relationship? Would it be possible for them to have a relationship that's meaningful, but maybe a little bit less close? Like, what's possible here? Knowing your limitations and knowing the hearts of both people involved, and do that with both of the parents. And if you can start looking at them as people and less as the role, sometimes it's easier to navigate what your boundaries are and what your needs are and how to speak honestly about what's coming up for you and then decide how to care for yourself. I don't know if that's helpful. Sometimes just the role we get in our mind, like a good mom looks like this, a good dad looks like this, and same with our parents. Our parents can be a good child looks like this or whatever, or a successful child looks like this or whatever. And so you can stop looking. It's like we kind of lose sight that the person is a person and they're going to do life in their own way. And they're going to be up against their own struggles in their own way. And we can kind of just expect them to fulfill the check boxes of the role that they are in our life instead of just looking at them as a person. So it's kind of a way to just like reset things and go, we're just both people. And we're both struggling with shit and we're both good at other things and we're both oriented in certain directions. And so what's possible for the relationship? Sometimes that can be really freeing and help us to make more room for ourselves and more room for the other person. I don't know if that's helpful. Oh, Heidi. Hey, sweetheart. Thank you for being so authentic. Matt says, just because they gave you life doesn't make them right. They're hurt humans too. Exactly. When people aren't aware that they're in pain, they act out their pain on other people. People in pain look like people who are judging. Sometimes people in pain look like people who make jokes all the time, or who sometimes our pain looks like depression. Sometimes our pain looks like eating our feelings. Sometimes our pain looks like being a rageaholic. Sometimes our pain looks like just trying to rescue everyone and people please. So our pain looks like different things in different moments, depending on what pain is being activated. And so if we're not aware of that, if we're not aware that our pain drives a lot of our behavior, and that if we can look at our pain, our behavior is going to change, then we don't change and we just keep acting out our pain on other people. So it's really, really helpful to start crafting an awareness of like, what's the tender feeling underneath the anger that I've got, the anxiety that I've got, the fear that I've got, the judgment I'm feeling toward this person, the blame I'm experiencing. I say every week, if you need help with this, I have a document of a graphic that I created. It's 5 layers. Each layer has a different color, and I call it the layers of feeling. We start out with the thought. We go through the belief about yourself. You go through the resistance to tender feeling, which is things like judgment and blame and anger and anxiety, things like that. And then you end up down in the blue layer, which is the layer where productive feeling is. And it's there that you want to just have compassion and room for your human. If you have not arrived down at the tender feeling, you are not to the bottom where the wisdom is. Everything else is just kicking up more shit for you to sort through. So learning which emotions to spend time with to really move through is so important. So if you need help with that, snag that. That's in my the link in my bio to my Etsy. Matt says, user 62. I say that as a parent and a hurt human. We didn't get manuals. We just made babies. It's true. Well, and each baby is different than the others, right? Because they're an individual human consciousness. So the way that you parent one kid doesn't work for both kids or all of the kids. I came from a family of 4 kids. And so a lot of the time, each kid needs their own way of being parented because they're all different consciousnesses. We all do things differently. So, user 62, I wish I had friends like you. We'll come back every week. We've been doing this. Matt has been with me from the very beginning. I don't know when I made you a moderator, Matt, but I feel like you were at my very first live. We've been doing this since January of 2023. So over a year and a half. And we do this pretty much every week. We've taken some weeks off for numerous reasons, but come back every week, Wednesday from 8 to 9. I'm here. I got you. I'm going to zoom back up because, Matt, I feel like you had something that you were saying. You had a question that we kind of skipped over. And where is it? Okay. Matt says, I keep trying to share things I like with a friend, but they don't seem to find the same specialness in them that I do. Do you keep trying to share things or just pull back and stop sharing? Okay, so I'm going to bring us back to a question that I brought up earlier. It's not about what decision you make. It's not about whether you share the thing or not. It's about going, what am I feeling that I'm sharing things that resonate and they're not resonating with my friend? What am I feeling? I'm going to guess there's some loneliness in there because you're trying to connect and your friend isn't connecting with them. So, yeah, I would look for that. Like maybe there's loneliness underneath, or maybe there's a belief that like you're not important to this friend, or that you're not important or valuable because they're not seeing you. I always say what you decide to do doesn't matter. That it doesn't matter. You can grow from any situation. So send them, don't send them. That's not the important thing. It's, can I show up for what's coming up in me that I'm having this experience? I don't know. I don't know if that's helpful, Matt. But I always want to look for that tender thing underneath. And then it's everything we've been talking about. It's just like looking for, what is the thing? What am I believing that feels so awful? Because I'm reacting to myself, not my friend. Matt says, yep, been here since the first call. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, friends, like I have people come into sessions all the time, one-on-one sessions, and they're like, should I leave the job? Like, I don't know. My marriage isn't going very well. Like, I don't know if I should leave my marriage. I don't know if it's the right fit for me anymore. Like when people are struggling with big life decisions or want me to weigh in on them, my answer is always the same. I am not attached at all to the decisions that you make. And I don't think your decisions are important. If you're being abused, like physically getting hurt by someone, or you're in a mentally abusive situation, like, yeah, your decision is important. Get yourself to safety. I'm not saying that. But if you're in a situation where you're just like, not feeling fulfilled in the way that you used to, or something's pissing you off and you're having a hard time letting it go, and you're going to try to make a decision to escape the situation that isn't what it used to be, I encourage everyone, slow it down. Slow it down. Don't go anywhere. What am I feeling that I'm experiencing this with this person? What am I feeling that we just had this conversation? What am I feeling that I just experienced this rejection? What am I feeling that my boss just spoke to me that way? What am I feeling that my gifts aren't being recognized? Like, start going through what you're feeling, that you're having that experience, and then learn to be with that tender feeling underneath. This is what I teach people to do, to feel competently, to slow your brain down enough, quiet it enough that you can actually be with the feeling and move it through without drowning. When you do that, what happens is you will either reemerge into the same situation with a completely different reaction because you're able to adjust your boundaries and speak up more honestly and show up in a way that's more honoring to you. and then see what the outcome is with the other person. And then you'll know what you need to, like, you'll know what the decision is, right? And you'll know you're not running away from yourself. If you make the decision before you feel the thing that's coming up, you're not listening to your guidance. Your emotions are there to get you to stop and slow down and go, whoa, hold on. Your emotions are like, whoa, human, chill out, slow down, stop for a second. You got to pay attention to what's happening right here. This is not working. And then when you do that, when you actually stop and you look around and you show up for the emotion that you have, you show up for the thing that's coming up, then you actually absorb the wisdom of the thing that you're moving through. But not until you actually feel it. If you skip over the feeling and you just skip to the decision, you've missed the wisdom that is being asked for you to connect with. I hope that makes sense. I want them to connect, but I don't want them to do it just for my sake, looking for mutual interest. That's what Matt says about his friend. So I think the truth is that we can't manufacture mutual interest. It's just going to be there or it isn't. And so if there are moments where it's there, that's beautiful. And you celebrate those moments and you lean into them. And in the moments that it isn't there, you show up for the part of you that feels a little bit lonely, that's your experience. And our days ebb and flow. Our conversations ebb and flow. There are moments of connection. There are moments of disconnection. This is part of just being in a human body. And so the loneliness is that it doesn't seem to be there. So that's what Matt says. So underneath with the loneliness, I almost created a sixth. I was about to say under the loneliness, but then I realized like underneath the loneliness, literally on the layers of feeling is love, connection, and safety. And so there is no underneath loneliness. Anyway, I caught myself. With the loneliness, this is where we want to get to the place where you know that you're not alone, where you know that the things that you like are valid, where you know that you're a worthy person regardless of whether anyone else gets it or not. So this is where you've got to remind you of who you are. You've got to take that 360-degree look and you've got to go like, oh, Matt, these are the things that I love about you. And this is painful right now that your friend isn't responding in the same way that you want them to. You know, and you show up for that part of you that feels lonely and you love it. You let it grieve that it's feeling small or forgotten or not important. And you love it. And then the truth is, the loneliness isn't going to have the same power that it did. Loneliness is going to come in less of the time. You won't have that same experience when you don't have that same mutual interest. So this is all about us remembering that the only thing that we can affect change with is ourself. And so we like to think like, I should say something to my friend because they should be more invested than this. But like the truth is people show us how invested they are in the way that they respond and the way that they take an interest in us or not. And all of that is okay. And none of it is a reflection on us. You are worthy. You are worth your interests. Your interests are valid. The way that you express yourself is valid. The way that you're doing the human thing is perfect. It's perfect for you. You are doing things your own way. You're your own consciousness. And so you're the only one who has to approve of the way that you're doing things and get things at the level that you do. And when you get to a place where your own love and acceptance is enough, it doesn't mean that you don't need other people. We're here to be in connection. But it means that when connection isn't there with other people, we're more resilient to it because we've got a place to land within ourselves. Matt says, of course, equally so. I'm not as interested in their passions either, so it's not all on them. Yeah, there you go. So it's just about going, they're a human being and I'm a human being and we're both doing things differently. And I am choosing. I'm going to be very careful about this because this is not about blame. It's not about blaming ourselves for our own focus or whatever, but it's about being aware of where our brains are. So it's like, My brain is choosing. It is deciding to look at the fact that I'm experiencing rejection, and it's deciding to believe that I'm not important or that I'm not enough because of that response, instead of focusing on, oh my gosh, I love that I just sent that. That was so funny to me. I love that I just like sent that to someone that I love, and not being attached to the way that we're received. Like just loving the part of us that loved that thing. Um, Matt said, "Oh, I didn't say they were a human. Oh, funny. Yeah, like it's one of your cats or something." Matt, love it. Um, but you get what I'm saying. It's like, yeah, we just get to be aware of where our brains are choosing to focus, because the truth is your worthiness and the places where you're creating friction for yourself, they exist at the same time. The beautiful parts about you and the hard shit that you create in your life, they exist at the same time. So it's not about skipping over the hard stuff, but it's about going like, can I not lose sight of the fact that I am a person and that I have redeeming qualities in every second of every day? And if I can just remember that, still going to hold myself accountable. I'm still going to apologize when I say things that I don't mean. I'm still going to, like be honest with myself about the places where I want to grow. I'm still going to grow my awareness. But like, I don't need to shit on myself while I do that. I can be kind. I can constantly look at where I am really outsourcing my worthiness and my sense of well being to other people by the way they're reacting to me. Instead, I can bring that back to myself, and I can make room for my own human experience every day. And I can get really good at feeling my own feelings. And I can get really good at becoming aware of my mind and noticing where I'm having disempowered thoughts and feeling small and limiting myself, so that I can be more resilient when I do experience disconnection with other people. Matt says sometimes my outer world is a reflection of my inner one. So that is always true. Our outer world is always a reflection of our inner world. We are creating our lives every second. You are a creator being. In every single conversation that you go into, you are bringing certain energy to that conversation, and it is shaping the conversation. You have certain beliefs about yourself, so you're going to look for a way to confirm those beliefs in what the other person says. So even if the other person is trying to give you a compliment, if you have a belief, like let's say it truly finds you to be like really beautiful in the outfit that you're wearing, and they say you look really beautiful. If you feel like shit, you're going to like look for something about what they just said. Like if you feel like shit about yourself, if you think that you are not a pretty person, if you feel like you're not beautiful, you're not going to take their compliment. What you're going to do is use it to fuel that part of yourself. You might get defensive. You might feel embarrassed. You're not going to receive it as it's intended. And so we shape our perception and the way we receive from other people and the way that we interact with other people based on our own beliefs. And so it's really, really important to look at your inner world and what your beliefs are that are shaping your inner world, because it's going to affect how you receive from other people, how you have conversation. Um, Even just like I was saying, even just the energy that you bring to a conversation is going to change how the other person is feeling and how they're reacting to you, in addition to your beliefs. So it's like when you walk into a room, you can feel if it's awkward, you know? Um, we're feeling energy from people all the time. We're just not always aware of it. So if you need help with this in like a deeper way, and you need like, if you're a person who needs like a pretty, um, an organized framework to like sink deeper into things, and you don't know this already, I am creating a course that I am committed to finishing by the end of September. I thought I would finish it by the end of August, but that's not going to happen, seeing that it's the 28th today. But I'm committed to getting it done. Yeah, by the end of September. And it's going to take you through how to rebuild your relationship with yourself, how to get agency over your brain, how to feel things competently without feeling like you're going to drown, like how to just interact with and sort through your feelings so that they don't feel like so much. So if that's of interest to you, just jump on my newsletter or just keep coming back every week. there's a link in my bio that says get Claire's free video. And or I think that's what it says. It's basically when you sign up for the Intuitive Emotional Healing newsletter, you're going to get a free video. That's basically like an introduction to this work. And I talk a little bit more about awareness and competent feeling and how those are like the two different arms of this work. So if that's of interest to you, definitely jump on my newsletter. I also do one-on-ones if on Zoom. If anybody needs a one-on-one, you're welcome to schedule that with me. Just DM me or shoot me an email at healingyourhuman.com. healingyourhuman@gmail.com is my email address. And then lastly, I run an online community with my partner, Jess, who's the osteopath and energy healer that I was mentioning at the beginning of this. And we help you with your energetic and emotional healing. I do a 90-minute workshop on there every month, intuitive emotional healing workshop, where you get face-to-face time with me to like work through stuff. You've got other self-healers that are in there too. Jess does 2 group healing sessions where she actually helps move energy within the group container, so you feel energy moving in your body, which is pretty cool. We have a little event called Monthly Reset, which is like a really nice just a little quiet ceremony that we do at the beginning of every month to set intentions for ourselves. We do a 2-hour conversation on rotating topics every month on a Saturday morning called Our 2 Hours Together. So if you're interested in that community, just shoot me a DM and I can send you a link to learn more about it. You get the first month free before your card is charged. So it's a good way to kind of get your feet wet in the work without having to invest anything up front. So if that's of interest, again, that self-healing immersion, just send me a DM. It's housed on Mighty Networks, if you know what that is. So thank you for being here tonight, everybody. I know that I'm a couple minutes early, but I'm feeling like there's a natural kind of closing to our time together. So thank you, TikTok. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you for all the questions tonight and for witnessing me in my very humbled, very, very emotional state earlier about this work and what I feel I'm stepping into. Thank you, Matt, for moderating. Thank you, Jess, for putting in Eckhart's books into the chat. I really do recommend reading The Power of Now if you want to separate from your brain. He's a really, really helpful place to start. So with that, thank you for being here. Come again every Wednesday, 8 to 9 on TikTok and YouTube. My handle on YouTube, if you're on TikTok, is the same. My YouTube and my TikTok are the same handle. It's Healing Your Human. So you can find me in both places. If you want to watch the recap of this, like the replay in full is on my YouTube, and you can send it to people who weren't here, who would have loved to have been here. So that's always an option. So, all right. Thanks, everyone. Have really sweet evenings. I'll see you next week.